Welcome to Heat Checks and Hail Marys. This is Mike Cagley. I'm going to talk a little bit about how I think the next 5 years are the most important 5 years in the history of Illinois athletics. What started me thinking about this was I was shocked that more attention was not paid to the Atlantic Coast Conference, the ACC, making the decision to stop distributing revenue equal to all conference members. To me, this decision is a troubling one, especially for schools that aren't considered traditional football powers or blue bloods, if you will, across this nation. Regardless of their conference affiliation, there's some things to look at that are concerning. In the light of this decision and what it could mean for schools like the University of Illinois, the next 5 years will be the most important in the history of Illinois athletics. So, what the ACC did to send a warning across college athletics was they had historically distributed revenue equally to its member schools. Now, a lot of conferences will at least play with the first few years of membership with new members, but once they're in, they get an equal share. After the ACC has battled Florida State and Clemson about revenue shortfalls when those two schools compared their ACC TV payouts to what teams in the Southeastern Conference, the SEC, and the Big Ten are getting, the ACC had to do something to respond to the shortfall for its power schools. And they decided to come up with a revenue distribution model that isn't based on equality, not even based on TV markets. The new model is based on television ratings and viewer numbers. In my mind, this is a transformation to paying teams for their current brand strength. Now, brand strength doesn't necessarily even mean current on field success. Look at Florida State. In the last 8 seasons, the Seminoles have had 5 losing seasons and 2 double-digit winning seasons. They have basically been a roller coaster, but they still attract eyeballs to television screens. This decision to pay for viewers and for brands really changes everything, especially from teams who've been on the outside looking in for decades. Now, what does the new ACC revenue distribution model look like? The ACC decided to distribute 60% of their revenue based on a rolling 5 year formula tied to viewership ratings. This means that the teams with the most viewers will get the most revenue. Teams at the bottom will now face an even higher hurdle trying to compete for championships in the conference because many of these teams haven't won recently. They haven't won consistently enough over time. And let's face it, their administrations of the past and even the recent times haven't made the decisions necessary to win in football. And now, not having a larger ratings impact is going to have real consequences. The remaining 40% of TV revenue will be split equally amongst conference members. So, what does this ACC revenue distribution model mean for the schools? The teams with the largest viewerships will be paid more. Now, on the surface, that seems fine, although it is totally the opposite of what has made the NFL so strong for decades and leans more towards Major League Baseball, which lets the rich get richer. But teams with the largest viewerships typically have in common is a long standing history of winning, a much larger football war chest that funds their winning. This goes to in terms of coaching salaries, number of support personnel, and player investments, both in compensation for players and in facilities for players to practice and play in. And all of these teams have massive fan bases, which help energize the ratings. To be frank, the model they're moving to has the high probability of being similar to baseball and being a case of the rich getting richer. Even worse is the system of rewarding ratings also provides a real road to building frustration amongst individual schools that will have a harder time moving up in the pecking order. To bring this back to IlliniGuys context, let's look at the Big Ten television deal, which runs through the 2029 to 2030 school year. The Big Ten broadcast partners are Fox, CBS, NBC, along with Peacock, and of course, the Big Ten Network. The time slots that generate the most viewers are on Saturdays, specifically on the major networks, with the Fox game at 11 a.m., the CBS game at 2:30 p.m., and the NBC game at 7 p.m. Where the challenge arises is if the Big Ten, in its next contract, were to adopt a similar formula to what the ACC uses. The teams who are selected by the conference for the games on Fox, CBS, and NBC will almost certainly achieve a higher viewership number than teams who are playing on the Big Ten Network or Peacock. With the conference desiring the highest ratings possible, there are real financial incentives for the conference to select the established football brands for the best time slots and do that most often. The schedule making process puts the conference in a bad place in terms of conflict of interest. It also plants the seeds of frustration amongst conference members, and the unequal distribution of revenue actually further perpetuates the teams that are doing well from the teams that are struggling to move up the ladder. If one wants to take the big brand model to its extreme, one could see lesser brands wanting to secure games with Ohio State and Michigan, for example, to move up their own TV ratings tool. Might lesser teams want these games so much that they offer to play Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Oregon, and USC? Hey, we'll even play you at your place instead of our place. Might an increase in TV viewers and the upward movement in the conference ratings mean a bigger revenue stream and more money for the athletic budget? So it may make sense to actually hope you go through a murderer's row of teams to help you get more dollars. It makes sense to cut a deal and try to make sure you get them on your schedule. The bottom line is teams that are trying to move up may actually want to run into some of these tough teams more often just to pump up the rankings. And of course, there are motivational questions that bump into the gray often, both for individual schools and that conference. The quest for more revenue certainly blurs motivations, and it's much more than the black and white quest just to win games. And what would a conference say if CBS said, we're going to renew, but every one of our games throughout the season has to have at least Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, USC, or Penn State on our game? Fox could say the same thing. So could NBC. Now, I'm not saying that that is going to happen, but it puts the conference in a horrible place if the distribution of funds isn't equal. The other thing that comes up with this is the distribution of talent is not going to change, which means those schools with the better reputation, longer history of making the decisions to win, and better success, which leads to more NIL funds, will have an advantage that can be built year after year because they are getting a disproportionate amount of the dollars coming in. This is a real conundrum for the conference as a whole, and that is what we saw cause so many issues in the old Southwest Conference and the Big 12 when Texas was a member. So, what lessons should be taken away from the ACC plan? Well, the lesson learned depends upon the schools point of view. For Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Oregon, and USC, the lesson would be that they can leverage their history of success, their long term of doing what is necessary to win, spending more to win, and their large fan bases that were a result of this winning. They leverage those things to get higher payouts than other teams in the conference. Due to audience sizes, these teams will be the preferred option for the best television times. And their strategy would be to maximize the number of times that they're on Fox, CBS, and NBC, both to get the most money possible and to keep their lead on their conference rivals. For teams like Illinois, the lesson is clear. The clock is ticking. The Illini must win and win as often as possible in 25, 26, 27, 28, and 29, especially in football. The Illini have a large alumni base, but consistent on the field success has eluded the program. They are going to have to maximize their ratings, and they have to do that by adding winning seasons to attract a larger number of viewers on a weekly basis. Otherwise, Friday night games and BTN Saturday broadcasts competing against bigger brands who are on the over-the-air networks might be their new home and would end up capping the Illini ability to move up the conference ladder. Now, no one knows if the Big Ten or SEC will move towards this model that the ACC has embraced. There's certainly much more cohesiveness towards the Big Ten and a longer term eye on strategy, and they're not backed into a corner the way the ACC is. But the only way to plan for a possible change in the revenue distribution is for the Illini to win and increase the leverage they would have at the bargaining table if the Big Ten were to start thinking or actually signing a series of new broadcast relationships for 2030 and beyond. Now, let's take a couple seconds to look at one of our sponsors. This is Busey Bank. They have been a sponsor for Illini Guys since day one.
This is the run my own business dream. This is the colleges paid for dream. This is the retire early dream. This is Busey, where your dreams and possibilities become moments through trusted guidance and expertise, through lifelong relationships. Because we're here to help you achieve the life you've always envisioned.
And if we had another sponsor, it would be Hershey's Candy Coated Eggs. Now you're asking me, like, well, how did you pick Hershey's Candy Coated Eggs? Well, let me tell you, folks, it's Easter time. You go onto the shelves at Walmart or your local grocery store, you're going to find Hershey's Candy Coated Eggs, and they are literally the best milk chocolate product on the market today. Think of a super powered M&M, much larger. And if you notice on the Hershey chocolate package, there's no warning that it may contain peanuts. It is just pure milk chocolate. It's oversized. It is fantastic. So the folks at Hershey, you've come out with my favorite candy of the year. Each year, we buy bags and bags of this. And beautiful thing is, milk chocolate lasts for quite some time. As a former Hershey rep in the early 90s, you can use these for the whole year. So just buy enough bags. I will tell you, they are the best tasting Easter candy, bar none. Just a little message from a company that should be our sponsor. Now, to go back to what the ACC has done with unequal revenue distribution and what that could mean to the Fighting Illini if the Big Ten were to entertain, or worse, enter into that type of agreement. How high are the stakes? Make no mistake, Illinois has to win as much as possible through the 2029 football season. And it won't be easy. It doesn't take long to compile a list of challenges. Illinois has to deal with programs with deeper pockets and a longer history of winning. The Wild West NIL environment, the rapid pace of change, the unclear vision of the congressional settlement ramifications makes the very environment that you are playing in totally unpredictable. The challenges of winning in the pay for play transfer portal battles is tougher than heck. And the increasing need for more and more fundraising to pay and recruit players is out there. Finding a way to move up in the pecking order of the Big Ten won't be easy, especially knowing other teams are looking to move up or make sure they don't fall in the pecking order. The bottom line is it comes down to what Yoda said. Do or do not. There is no try. That little Jedi master said it best. There's no option for failing. The Illini must put together the best run of wins and losses in Illini football history. They must be able to either succeed in a situation like the current environment or be ready for a battlefield that very well might be even more uneven than today's is. Failure is not an option. Unequal revenue distribution and unequal talent attraction, i.e., you'll never see a draft like you see in the NBA or the NFL, and you'll never see a hard salary cap that will be enforceable. This ACC style of television revenue distribution will result in a bigger gap between the have and the have-nots across the conferences in this country. The new broadcast contracts in 2030, if they embrace this, may be the final step before college football evolves into a true super conference with only 18 to 24, maybe 30 teams in it, and they'll become a mini NFL. Illinois needs to be prepared for that eventuality. So, what is needed for winning that the Illini currently have? Well, there's two key necessities to win in today's college football environment that Illinois has stacked the deck on. The first is having a good athletic director. Josh Whitman, the Illini AD, has the vision to understand the pathway the Illini need to travel to be successful on the field in Big Ten football. And he has the ability to influence decision makers at the highest level of collegiate sports. Witness his testimony in Washington, D.C. a few weeks ago. Whitman has hired the triumvirate of Underwood, Bielema, and Shauna Green, and has successfully filled the three biggest revenue sports with coaches that are able to win at a high level. He has moved the Illini much closer to his vision for success and has the Illini at the point of trying to sustain success as opposed to crossing their fingers and hoping they can just be successful. The second thing Illinois has that's critical is a head football coach. Brett Bielema has been able to turn the moribund Illinois football program into a respected team in the Big Ten. Now, younger fans say that's no big deal. Us older fans know how hard it is to do that. He has used limited NIL funds to attract key players from the transfer portal to fill key holes in the Illini roster, and he has influenced valued Illini players to stay in Champaign-Urbana versus entering the transfer portal or entering the NFL draft. Bielema now takes on a task that has never been done in the history of Illinois football, and that's having two double-digit winning seasons back-to-back. Ohio State does it every year and does it for decades. Illinois has never done it before. The stakes are huge for a coach who is known for his ability to identify talent and to win big without a massive number of five-star recruits on his roster. Bielema is a good match for the Illini and has done his job so well that he may even be an attractive target for schools looking to improve their program status in the next few years. But it is critical to realize that when you have an asset at head coach, that is a differential advantage that Illinois has, and they need to make sure that they retain him. What else do the Illini need? Well, the Illini need to have a robust NIL program. Each year, the Illini have been able to increase the resources used to support the three big revenue sports. This must not change, but annual increases in fundraising need to increase even faster. This is certainly not an attack on the current status quo, but when you look at multiple teams reportedly spending around $20 million on their football roster alone, the cost of winning is high indeed. If there are any potential big ticket donors who are on the fence or even considering supporting the Illini, these individuals must be converted from potential donors to new and or existing donors. The Illini must have a plan to generate NIL funds from the top of the economic food chain and a real grassroots effort that allows everyday fans to contribute and feel a part of the program as well. Bielma needs his NIL funds to support the further evolution and elevation of Illini football. Underwood needs additional NIL funds as schools like BYU are taking basketball NIL fundings to, quite frankly, ridiculous levels. Shauna Green needs the funds to fuel her elevated recruiting results. And the school probably needs to figure out women's volleyball, as that is another sport that is a proven moneymaker for an athletic department if done right. The one thing out of Whitman, Bielma, and Underwood and Green's control is who is hired to replace Robert Jones as chancellor of the University of Illinois. It would be great to hire an individual that understands that successful athletics are a perfect way to create an image that benefits the university when students are considering which school to attend. Ask Alabama what football has meant in both the number of admissions and the quality of the students admitted to their university since Nick Saban showed up. Winning matters more than just athletic revenue and civic pride. It means a difference to the quality of students walking on the concourses of the university. Don't let any professor try to tell you differently. It just means they need to come out of the ivory tower and get a little realism injected into their life. So the conclusions that I've made here, the next 5 years are the most important years that Illini football has ever witnessed. To fall back or fall behind now is dangerous. The red alert nature of the new ACC revenue distribution model cannot be ignored. Gaining leverage for television negotiations is critical. Having as many years of ratings success as possible is a necessity. Illinois has had ratings in the years they've excelled. Imagine the rating success the Illini could have with sustained on the field success. The Illini need to create leverage and build on their 2024 season. This is Brett Bielema's task. He appears to be the right man for the job. Football is the big dog in college athletics, and it's no different whether it's Illinois, Michigan, or Ohio State. If the football team is doing well, so is the athletic department. Certainly, schools that have had extended decades of improved football success, like Iowa and Wisconsin, who stunk in my childhood, are doing their best to avoid stumbling. They may not have reached the blue blood level of Ohio State, Michigan, or Penn State, but Wisconsin and Iowa don't want to return to the levels of performance they experienced in the 70s. Illinois is looking to pass these schools up and shake the Big Ten pecking order. Any upward movement by the Illini will meet fierce resistance. Program and athletic department resources are critical. As in a war, The supply lines must be consistent and dependable. The stakes have never been higher. Will the Big Ten succumb to pattern their next broadcast revenue distributions in the image of the ACC model? I'm hoping not, but no one knows for sure. But the Illini must prepare for such an eventuality. The only way to do that is to win big in football. The time is now.